I'm here today with,
Jess Lee, one of the co-founders of Dev.to.
and this is a very special episode because we're having sort of another look at Dev.to. Way back in the day, way back in the day, last year, we had your co-founder Ben on, and we talked about sort of growing a healthy community and the responsibilities there. And you're here to talk to me about how that worked. So, how did that work?
One of the biggest considerations we had before even attempting to really build out the dev community was that many other online spaces are pretty toxic and hostile and generally unwelcoming for newer developers. And so it's been just a core part of what we do is to ensure that the community stays constructive and feel welcome.
I love how wonderfully gracious and gentle that was to say, oh, not everywhere is fantastically welcoming to new technologists, maybe new developers, or new technologists of any stripe.
Yeah, it's been like a happy surprise. We've been deliberate in how we've built the community, but it's amazing to see people come back every day and participate and support us. And it's been very validating to know that what eventually started as Ben and I scratching our own itch and trying to build this community because we felt like we needed it. It's been great to see that other people felt the same way.
And how did this happen? So it's been well, not how did this happen? I bet the how is lots of hard work and thinking really critically. But what steps did you all take in putting the community together and starting to populate it with the first posts, the first bits of content? What was this approach to building a really healthy community?
So initially, we reached out to folks on Twitter who had already started building out a space for developers. And we really encouraged people to cross post. And because Ben had built up a Twitter account that was well liked for a lot of its humor, we had this like built in audience that we could signal boost other people's articles to.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times if you're posting on Medium or your personal blog, unless someone's checking your blog every day, it sort of gets lost unless you have a big following on Medium already. Like it gets lost. And so being able to sort of streamline a lot of good articles around software development was something that we were able to do because of our Twitter community to start. And, our initial strategy was, okay, let's reach out to this list of people, like this person's doing something cool, but people don't even realize it. So let's try and get them to post on Dev.
And that seems like a relatively lightweight sort of thing to ask people for. Not come and post a lot, not come and build out new content for us, but like, hey, if you're already posting this, you may want to cross post it here and get a little bit more attention, get some of the attention it deserves.
Right. Yeah, we don't believe in, like, your content is your content, and we really just believe in people putting it everywhere to get as much reach as possible. We never tell people, like, a lot of people ask us, oh, is it okay if I cross post? And we really want to encourage that because it's about the individual, not about the dev platform having the most developer articles ever, or,
Yeah. And this seems like something that's like very unusual. I hear very few platforms doing this, but something that sounds very healthy for the general web as well. So don't put your stuff in this walled garden. Maybe don't put your stuff in any walled garden. But if you do have stuff out there on the big magical web, folks can also find it and discover it here.
Yeah, exactly. And right now we have this new initiative called Project Benatar, and it's sort of all about that. But one of the first things we're working on is with a company called Stackbit, and they're helping us sort of one click and turn Dev basically into a CMS
What?
that creates your own website, and your post on Dev will sync up with the site that they spin up for you.
That sounds pointedly magical.
So that's in the works right now.
So fantastic. It sounds like there's a lot of really exciting work going on. What are you thinking about the future? Do you all want to really focus on getting more people in, getting more brand new voices to tech? Where would you like to go with this community next?
I mean, our biggest priority is to continue growing the community, but I just mentioned Project Minotaur, and we see a future where we'll be able to not just help build developer communities, but build other communities on the code that powers Dev as well. And so,
Oh, that's really exciting.
yeah.
Almost white labeling healthy community builds.
Right. And so we've been open source for a year. We just celebrated our 1 year anniversary about 2 weeks ago. And that has been a really amazing, like the best decision we've ever made. Like we always knew, like if we had, well, I mean, we didn't always knew, because if we always knew on day one, we would have been open source, but we quickly realized that there's just so much value in being open source. And if you look at our repo today, we've had over 200 individual contributors help better the project.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works. And by virtue of being open source, we have this ability, hopefully in the future, to build out more communities.
Looking back, so you're in a place now where you all have been deservedly, marvelously successful with your community building, with the technology you've launched, with the platform that Dev.to lives on. Can you tell me a bit about what some of the biggest challenges were very early in putting Dev.to together?
That's an interesting question. So I think some of the challenges we discussed early on would have been platform adoption, getting people to cross post, and eventually creating that association that Dev is the place to go to stay up to date on developer news and insights. But that's less technical. I'd say maybe like internally, it was obvious that there were just a million tasks at hand. So I focus a lot on just internal team management and our internal processes. And so when I think about early on challenges, that's what I think about. We're not the kind of company to have like a super strict roadmap that we follow along. And we really tried to give each person on our team the freedom to explore different areas that they need, because we knew whatever got contributed would be helpful regardless. But that is a little bit chaotic to start. And now we're at a place where we have a lot of MVPs that need a new iteration. And so like the roadmap is a lot more clear these days, whereas initially it was just do whatever you can to make this better.
So you talked really briefly about how you all started out part-time and moved to full-time. Can you tell me, we may have our dear listener out there thinking, oh, wow, I want to launch my own thing, but I can't quit my job right now.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what that process felt like? So were you working full-time? What kind of time were you giving to this? And did it sort of feel like a side project until it wasn't?
I'll just give you even more background to answer this question.
Yeah.
I'm actually a boot camp graduate. And so I had like a pretty dramatic,
Congrats.
I had a pretty dramatic shift in careers. So right when I got out of the boot camp, it was very isolating, and you sort of lose the support of going to class every day and being surrounded by peers. And through a friend of a friend, I was able to meet Ben, and we were working on a totally different side project. And through working on this other side project together, we were just having lots of general conversations about the developer space. And that's how I discovered the Twitter account he was working on. And I was immediately interested in the type of work that he was doing, because I didn't want Hacker News and R programming to be the best it got when it came to
Oh,
yeah, when it
no.
came to staying up to date. So that's sort of the backstory. And so when we realized that we were very much aligned in how we felt, we started working together on Dev. And during that entire time, I was just trying to get better at coding, and I was looking for a developer role, but I was also really set on finding a company that was mission driven, and I wanted to do something good for the world. I know that sounds really cheesy, but I also came from like
No, that's lovely.
I came from like the music industry where everything is sort of terrible. And so I was really picky about what job I got, and I found this company that I'd known about for a long time, and
Yeah.
they didn't have any developer positions open, but they had product. They were looking for a product manager. And so where my priorities was working for a company that was making an impact on the world. So I went with the product manager role. While I was doing that full time, Ben and I continued to work on Dev together. And he was also working at another startup, which, funny enough, 8 months later, the founder of that startup ended up becoming our third co-founder. And we stopped working on that startup
Oh,
and sort of
oh,
just joined forces and started working on Dev.
I've gotten so used to heartbreaking like really, really tragic stories out of startups where you're like, and it turned, the big reveal there was just like, oh no, like, oh, and it turns out the founder, I was like, oh no, he's in jail now. Oh, he's your co-founder. Everything's fine.
Yeah, so it's been amazing to work with Peter, and having like a 3-person co-founding team, I know is like a little bit out of the ordinary, but it really works for us. And it works for us in the sense that one of us can always be like a mediator if there are disagreements, and we just have a lot of trust in one another, which is also really important for that type of relationship.
Yeah, so this sounds like a really lovely narrative of how this really lovely community came to be. We're like, hey, we realized we deserved better than the programming subreddits and Stack Overflow, and then we built this beautiful thing. For maybe our listener who hasn't been to Dev.to yet, can you sort of describe in broad strokes what the site's like, what goes on there? Is it just cross-posted articles?
No, it's not just cross-posted articles. People are writing. I mean, people who don't have blogs or other publishing platforms, like most people post directly to Dev. You can think of it as a social network. You can go there. The first thing you'll see is a bunch of articles that got surfaced, and they're surfaced because people like them through reactions or different comments, and that's sort of a signal that it was worth putting on the homepage. So the first thing you see is a bunch of articles. It's all written by developers around the world. Aside from my own personal posts, we don't pay for any writers to write content. It's all just user generated.
I love the way you're like, I'm getting paid.
So it's really like a social network. You can follow people, they can follow you back, you can leave comments and reactions. First thing you see is a bunch of articles, but then we have sidebars where you can see discussions, which is a little different from the article because it's really in the comment section where people are just talking about different subjects as opposed to like a full length tutorial about ngrok or something.
Yeah.
We also recently added a new part of the site called Dev Listings, where people can post basically anything related to being a developer. So companies will often post job opportunities, but if you are also looking for work, you can post that you are looking for work and share your resume. If you want to sell your mechanical keyboard, you can also post that too. There's a lot going on over there, but that's a much newer part of the site.
That is extremely exciting. So the newest part of the site is the ability to buy and sell, not devs themselves, but your labor in a free-ish market, and maybe some of those clacky keyboards that will make everyone in your office hate you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad I work from home, so no one can complain about my keyboard.
Oh, do you have like an aggressive mechanical keyboard approach?
It's not super aggressive, but it does click.
I was going to say everybody I've known who has a mechanical keyboard, they're like, no, I'm really gentle with it. And that's always been a lie.
Oh.
I'm sure you're the one person who's actually very gentle with theirs.
Well, now that I think about it, there's been a few times over video chat where people were like, man, Jess, I can really hear you typing.
I should also add, it is on a very personal note, it is an absolute delight to be interviewing another Jess. How cool is this?
Oh, yeah. That makes me so happy. There's actually, I don't know if you're on this, but I think on Twitter there's like a list of Jesses who are also developers.
Oh, fantastic.
And if you're not on it, I should find it and I will add you.
And for our dear listeners, if you want to make friends with more Jesses in tech, apparently all of us I think all of us living on the internet isn't a huge surprise. If our dear listener is somebody who's not on Dev.to yet, and I think briefly we should point out that the URL for Dev.to is Dev.to. If you haven't yet logged on and made your own profile, Jess, what kind of encouragement can you offer them to check it out right now? Is there something that they absolutely must see or something they absolutely must show off?
Yes, definitely. If you have a project that you're working on, this is the place to show it off. We have a tag called Show Dev, and it's really just a place to show off what you've been working on, and you can get some feedback and support. A lot of people also post that they're looking for contributors. So if you are looking for contributors to that project, this is a great place to do it. And if I were to sell you on like actually creating an account, I'd say it's because you can go into night mode, which like apparently is something that people care about.
It is. When you say night mode, do you mean like a dark mode for your for display?
Yes.
Oh yeah, like everybody wants dark mode.
Right.
Um,
But you can only do it if you actually log in.
what an incentive. Oh, I suppose because it only remembers your preference if you're logged in.
Yep.
It's extremely convincing. So come and check it out. Don't have to log in unless you want very, very cool night mode, and in which case you're absolutely legally required, well, technically required to sign in.
Well, okay, so I tell people about night mode, but in reality, the theme that I use is the pink theme, and that is just so much fun.
Excuse me, the pink theme.
The pink.
Excuse me, there's a pink theme.
Yep.
Hold on, audience. We're going to check this out live in real time. So please enjoy whatever high pitched sound comes next. So we go to settings,
It's under miscellaneous.
which is weird. You really feel like pink mode needs its own so style. Pink theme.
And you'll have to refresh to actually see it.
Yeah, I am impossible. Dear listeners, immediately go and sign up for an account if you feel like it, if it's helpful. And very clearly, pink mode is the most powerful mode.
Yeah, sometimes I forget that it's not all pink.
So you're like, oh, just go up to the pink box in the corner. No, not the pink box. So we've talked a lot about this project that all of you have been working on and how valuable it's been and how sort of what the challenges and trials and tribulations of getting it put together are. I'd like to pivot a little bit and talk very specifically about your journey. So you're a relatively recent bootcamp grad, and you've come from there through a startup looking at product, and then very, very quickly into being the co-founder of this immensely popular project. Can you talk to us a little bit about sort of how you're managing your learning? How's it felt? And what do you want to do next?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think the assumption when I tell people I'm one of the co-founders of Dev, they naturally assume that I'm this like super senior experienced developer. And the reality is that I am like really just trying to keep up, like desperately trying to keep up. Basically, whenever I have time, I try and submit a PR. I try and take issues that it's interesting because a lot of times there'll be bigger issues that I don't necessarily feel qualified to work on. And I end up not doing that because, like, as one of the founders, like that's not the best use of my time. So I try and find a balance of issues that will give me quick wins, but also issues that will like help me learn a little bit more.
That seems a good mix. Where it feels like you're getting things done, but where there's still learning to be done.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting because I can't necessarily justify my time for working on this like big new feature that's in a framework that I haven't worked on before. Like, so I stick mostly to the back end, do a lot of Ruby and Rails, and like the React stuff really makes my head spin. So I'll try and take the much smaller issues there so I can learn from that. But you'll find me on like the West Boss JavaScript 30 stuff every now and then just to practice.
Yeah. So you're still really focused on learning. You're balancing stuff that lets you feel like you're being productive and lets you meaningfully be productive with stuff that feels a little bit more challenging, feels weird.
Right.
Good weird, I hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always like I'm always in a much better mood if I've like fixed a bug or worked on something. Like just anything I can contribute to the code base just makes me feel so much better.
And what would you, if you were talking to a brand new developer who was saying, oh, wow, I want to be building my own stuff. I want to be building my own product. I want to be doing something exciting. What would you tell them?
I guess I would ask them what their goals are for the product. Like, is it just a side project or is it something they want to pursue full time? Because there's a few different ways to look at it. If it's just a side project, then I would encourage them to explore new technologies. If it's something they want to take very seriously, I'd actually encourage them to stick with technologies they're more familiar with so that they can build quickly and get feedback really quickly and iterate on it. Whereas if it's like totally new, there's probably a lot more holes in your knowledge and that like feedback loop probably can't spin as quickly.
So we're coming up on time in just a moment. If you had one moment to say something encouraging or to give a word of warning or a small piece of advice to either a new developer or somebody who's thinking about moving into development for the first time, what one thing would you like to leave them with?
Okay, for new developers, you'll hear a lot of people tell you to contribute to open source, and it'll seem really scary, but know that it's not. And that's really, truly a really good way to learn and become a better developer. And if you're just looking to become a developer, and then I would encourage you to read more about it. There's like a huge knowledge base of people who just went through what you're considering. So whether it's a career change or you don't want to go to college, you want to go straight into coding or something, lots of people have already walked that path. So I would try and follow them and learn about their journey to see if it's really right for you.
Fantastic. Jess, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
If folks want to find Dev.to online, what is the mysterious, difficult to remember URL it lives at?
It's Dev.to.
If folks wanted to see the kind of work you do online, where could they find you in non-creepy ways?
Yeah, so Dev.to/Jess is a great way to reach me. I have an open inbox, so you can just DM me. But you can also find me on Twitter at twitter.com/Jess Lee NYC.
Fantastic. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me.